Where do I look? Just. Welcome to the first meeting of this new school year. It's July 2nd, and we're going to start with part 1 of the organizational portion of this meeting. May I have a motion? Nope. Hold on a second. Sorry. Congratulations to our new board members. I'm just going to skip a little bit because I have Pedro first and he's not here yet. Congratulations to our new board members, Christine Pemberton and Carl Tomick. At this time, I'm going to swear you both in. This is why I have you sitting next to each other. I'm trying to do this not in your way pictures. Okay. Go back to picture. Christine, would you stand up? Raise your right hand and read your oath of office.
I, Christine Pemberton, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of trustee of the Board of Education for the Hyde Park Central School District for the term July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
How we doing, folks? Hey, good. Steve, how are you? Very official. She just got notes. Carl, Ed,
And then Carl,
Margaret.
your turn.
Hi.
I, Carl Tomick, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of trustee of the Board of Education for the Hyde Park School District for the term July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Dr. Roman,
Yes,
take your oath of office.
absolutely. My pleasure. So I, Pedro Roman, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Superintendent of Schools for the Hyde Park Central School District for the term of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you. And then
So Mike is going to be there.
thank you, everybody.
That's great. That's good.
Okay. I should also mention that Margaret Katani is joining us virtually, and you will see her on screen. She is able to attend the meeting and participate as if she were in the room. At this point, may I have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to the employment of a particular person or persons and negotiations for employment?
So moved.
Second, Margaret.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any comment? I should have said any comment first, sorry. I'm out of practice with this. Motion passes. We're in executive session. The board should return about 7 o'clock for open session. Okay. Okay. Welcome to the Hyde Park Central School District reorganizational meeting. It's Tuesday, July 2nd. This is the first meeting of the 24-25 school year. Please note that Margaret Catani is attending this meeting virtually due to extraordinary circumstances. As such, we will also be offering virtual participation during public participation. The number will appear on the screen when we get to that section of the agenda. If everyone could please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Five point one. We're at this time, I'm requesting nominations for the office of President of the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Mike Zagorski.
I second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we are going to close nominations. Being that we only have one nominee, by show of hands, may I see who votes for? Margaret? Yep, okay. I couldn't see your hand. Sorry, Margaret.
It's okay.
By unanimous vote, Mike Zagorski, you are have been voted the president. Please come and take the oath of office, and then you can take your seat. Sorry. Bobby? The clicker's not working?
He has it memorized anyways, it's all good.
Here you go, Mr. President.
It's not official.
Yeah, mine was read it from the book. Sorry, the screen's not.
I think I have it. Oh, is it in there?
It's right here as well. Wait, yeah, it's just in the board.
All right. I, Mike Zagorski, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of President of the Board of Education for the Hyde Park Central School District for the 24-25 school year according to the best of my ability.
Please find the book.
Right here.
Yes. Mr. President, I turn the meeting over to you.
All right.
There's a script right here if you like it.
So moving on to, thank you, everyone, by the way. Moving on to 5.2, I need any nominations for vice president.
I nominate Mike Tibbetts for vice president.
Any second? Second from Christine.
Thank you.
Any other nominations for vice president? Any other nominations for vice president? Have to do it 3 times. Any other nominations for vice president?
Oh, I was taught.
Okay, seeing that there are no more nominations, can I have a motion to nominate, to elect Mr. Tibbetts as vice president for the Board of Education for the 24-25 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
That's right here too.
Okay.
On the screen?
Yeah.
All right. No, it's not.
It was a second ago. Hang on, there it is. Sorry.
I, Michael Tibbetts, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Vice President of the Board of Education for the Hyde Park Central School District for the 2024-2025 school year according to the best of my ability.
It's official. Oh, not yet.
No, it's got signed above.
So, pencils and still, no.
Let's try.
I don't believe we have any agenda modifications. Okay, can I, 6.03, can I get a motion to adopt part 1 of the 24-25 reorg meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second, Tibbetts.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 7.01, discussion of any part 1 consent agenda items. Are there any discussion of any of these items? I didn't have any questions. Any other discussion? Questions? Okay. Moving on to 8.01. Can I get a motion to approve part 1 consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.21 for the July 2nd reorg meeting as presented?
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 9.01. Borrowing resolution. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby empowers the superintendent of schools to borrow sums of money and authorizes the president and vice president of the board to be given the authority to sign necessary documents as needed, prepared by Barclay Damon LLP, Albany, New York, to issue appropriate short-term notes according to local finance law, tax anticipation notes, TANs, and revenue anticipation notes, RANs. This must be a roll call vote, a 2/3 majority of the full Board of Education, 5 votes needed for action. So for me, I say aye. Mr. Tibbetts?
Aye.
Ms. Pemberton?
Aye.
Ms. Catani?
Aye.
Mr. Spence?
Aye.
Mr. Tomic?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous vote. Designations Board Advisory Committees.
Hold on a minute. Sorry, point of order. Did you do a motion and a second on that one? Or did you just go right to the roll call?
On the borrowing.
Right to the,
You should motion it. and
well,
then-
they didn't say that, so that's why.
Oh.
Okay, so
Sorry.
going back to 9.1, prior to our votes, could I get a motion for the borrowing resolution?
So moved, Tibbetts.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, and then everybody's roll call vote stays the same, or do you want to change it? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So designations Board Advisory Committees. So this is where we put people on the committees?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll just go down.
I'll just-
There's no votes on these, right? We
No.
just- Okay, so,
Just discussion.
going down the list, Audit Committee. So this is where we discuss internal, external audits. We meet with the internal, external auditors with Linda.
So a couple of meetings a year.
Yeah, it's a handful of meetings a year. Usually they're pretty quick. We always like a community member as well, to join this committee. Last year, we had me and you on the committee, and Carl and Christine were community members. So with that, you can't be community members anymore. So would anyone like to be on the audit committee?
I would.
You would want to be on the audit committee? Anyone else? I'll be on it if nobody else wants to be on it. So then we need, community members, if you're interested in joining the audit committee, please let us know, if you're interested. Are you interested?
But I wouldn't pay attention.
Then she's on.
Want to join the audit committee, let us know. So you don't have to tell me.
Carl said I had to. He's calling me.
Okay, so we have our 2 board members and we'll look for a community member. If anybody out there is looking for something to do, join the audit committee. The next one is 10.02, the district leadership team. Up to 3 board members may serve on any committee. The DLT is a 2-part committee. There's the evening DLT, which includes members of the community, students, staff, and other district representatives. The purpose to implement strategic planning, monitoring, and budget alignment processes with stakeholder input. Time commitment, 6:30 to 8:30, meets quarterly or more frequently as needed. New York State mandatory required, yes. And then the second part is the instructional DLT program focus subgroup made up of instructional staff. Purpose to implement the data for continuous improvement process and the core with fidelity with stakeholder input. May meet monthly or more as needed. And that's a full day commitment, 8 to 3. And it's a mandatory requirement from New York State. Last year we had Margaret and Jesselyn serving on this committee. So,
I'll continue with it this year.
okay,
I'll take over Jesselyn's point.
okay. Anyone else interested in being on that?
I prefer like it. I'm not.
Well, we get 3, so.
We could have 3.
Yeah. So anybody else interested on the DLT? Okay. Moving on to 10.3, policy committee, up to 3 board members may serve. Purpose to review, revise, and draft policies for consideration by the board for approval. This includes consideration of proposed policy updates. 36 policies are required to be reviewed annually, and we review an average of 120 policies each year with a goal to review all policies on a 5-year cycle. Time commitment, 7 days a week. No. Great skill like that. The policy committee meets about once a month on a pre-planned schedule throughout the year. Meetings held Monday or Tuesday evenings, 5 to 7 p.m. Mandatory required, yes. Last year it was Jesse and Mike Tibbetts served on this committee. Would anyone like to be on policy committee this year?
I'll do policy.
Okay, we have Christine
I would also.
and Carl. Anyone else? Margaret or Ed? Mike? No?
I would, but I can't do Monday nights. That's the thing. So I don't want to constrain.
Well, there's also several new committees this year that we haven't had in the past, so we might want to think
Oh,
about
hold on.
not having 3 on each so that we can fill some of the newer committees.
Okay. I mean, and you could always change it. If you change your mind and want to be on one of these committees after the fact, nobody's going to stop you. Unless we already
As long
have
as we
3.
don't have a quorum.
Right. All right, Code of Conduct Committee.
Steve.
Oh, sorry, SAVE. The SAVE Committee is the district-wide safety team. It is comprised of this Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services, the Safety Officer, board members, student resource officers, assorted staff, and community-based first responder representatives. They meet on a bi-monthly basis, virtually 9 to 11 a.m., and it is required. Last year, Margaret was on this committee.
Yeah, I cannot do it again this year because my work schedule has changed.
I can do it.
Okay, we have Christine on the SAFE committee. Anyone else? Yeah, it's hard for me because it's during the day. So I can't do that. Okay, code of conduct, purpose to review, revise, and monitor the code of conduct with a restorative and equity lens with stakeholder input. This is not a mandatory committee. Time commitment 6 to 7:30 p.m. One time per quarter or monthly as needed.
I can stay on that one.
Oh, sorry. Last year it was Margaret and Carl attended these.
I'll stay on that.
Okay.
Do we need to? Would we like to have two?
I don't think we have to have two.
I can do it if we need a second person.
Okay.
Is out. You have somebody else there. That's
Yeah.
all.
You want to do it? Okay. Okay, the next one is the Dutchess County School Board Association. The purpose, Dutchess County BOCES operates this group. Each component district may have one delegate and one alternate. The group provides a forum for school board members to exchange information on relative topics. They represent member school districts on various regulatory and legislative topics at the local, state, and national level. They meet the first Thursday of each month, virtually and in person at times starting at 7 p.m. Not mandatory, but recommended. Last year, we had Ed as the representative and Jesse as the alternate. Would anyone like to be our delegate for this?
I'd like to continue.
Okay, Ed is the regular person. Anybody want to be the alternate?
Yeah, I'll take alternate.
Okay, Carl's the alternate. Facilities Steering Forum. Is this a new one? Okay. Purpose to develop and monitor the capital improvement plan, district repair and improvement plan, and aspects of capital projects with stakeholder input. 5 to 6:30 p.m. Thursday, quarterly or monthly when capital projects are in the planning phase. Not a mandatory committee. Would anyone like to be on the facility steering forum?
I would like to be, but I have to check my schedule to make sure.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll
Say something? The date, Thursday was the date that we were meeting, this past year, but the committee was just revived, so.
Well, then,
They can change.
then for sure, then yes,
Yeah.
as long as it's not, yeah.
Yeah, none of ours.
I'm teaching at night this semester, so I don't remember what days, so that's.
You would like to do it too?
Yeah, I think we're down for that one. Government Liaison Committee. The board president or vice president and another board member have typically been designated to serve as the government liaisons for the district. In this capacity, they would represent the district at meetings with organizations such as town boards, planning boards, area chamber of commerce, Hyde Park and Dutchess County, or other area advocacy meetings as necessary. At a minimum, one time per quarter unless otherwise agreed upon, not a mandatory New York State thing. Last year was Margaret and Jesslyn serving on this.
I can continue on that.
I can be an alternate for a day and say you can't make it.
Well, we could have more than one, like not, like, right? Because more than one person, right, Margaret, could attend this, right?
Yeah, but I don't want to.
Yes, and it would be nice to have a second person.
I'll do this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do this one as well.
And we'll keep Mike Tibbetts as the alternate in case.
The alternate.
So I'm sorry, who was that? Who's going to be on that?
You and I.
Okay.
The next one is the negotiations team. Let's see, purpose, meet as needed to discuss, negotiate, and review employee contract renewals and changes. Time commitment upon expiration of contract as needed. not for Board of Education members. Board members and administrative staff meet as needed to discuss, negotiate, and review employee contract renewals and changes.
I don't think there are gonna be any contracts up next year, right? Because we're doing them all this year, is that right?
CSE.
Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting one because it's really just informational for board members, right? We sit there and just kind of observe things. We don't really have input. We don't speak. You know, I think that's why it's saying not for, like, board members aren't like an active participant in it. I mean, is this saying that we don't want board members on this, or what is it?
No, it's just saying that it's just not a requirement. It's for the board's consideration on whether or not, I mean, there's a lot of other committees that you're involved in to stretch yourself, you know,
Yeah.
and but that's up for discussion.
So they
And
meet
that's-
as,
That's a committee that reports to the full board that's a process that we're involved with. So I could see where we might not need to have somebody on that committee, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, personally, for me, I liked being on it over the past couple of years just to see how the process works, right? To understand how negotiations work and observe what's going on. Would anybody like to?
I'd sit in, yeah, they meet what as needed.
Yeah, whenever there's a contract, and it's, again, there's no participation. It's just, you sit there and, the responsibility is really for Dr. Roman with our legal representative to do negotiations. And then, at the end of the negotiations, they're presented to the entire board of what the end result of those negotiations were. So. Okay, so Carl will participate.
Okay.
The next one is the Personnel Committee. Meets on an as-needed basis to interview administrative candidates prior to their recommendation to the board. Time commitment as needed. It's not a required committee, not a required by New York State. Last year, it was Jesse, Margaret, and myself on this committee.
I'd like to stay on it.
Okay.
I'll go on it.
What's that?
I think I do.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
And Mike?
Sure.
Okay. All right, the next one, Special Ed Committee, purpose to review recommendations for special education placements and progress. 6 to 7 p.m. virtual, one time per quarter. It's not a mandatory New York State committee. Last year it was Jesslyn and Ed serving on this committee. Would anyone like to continue? Well, first, I guess the question is, you were on it. Is it a valuable thing
That was
to?
very valuable. I'd like to continue.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, so we have Christine and Ed. This one was passed. The next one is the Technology Committee to develop and monitor a comprehensive technology plan that addresses cybersecurity, 21st century learning, and technology improvements with stakeholder input. Time commitment 4 to 5 p.m. first Tuesday of each month. It's not a mandatory committee. And last year we didn't have this. But was there a committee? It says, we know the time already is going to be the first. Okay.
I got that from them.
First Tuesday. I can't do the first Tuesday of the month. So I'm out on that one.
I can do this committee. Okay. So I think, districts, you're supposed to make a technology plan every 3 years, so it's not like an every year committee. So that's why we didn't have it in the last couple of years, I think.
Oh.
So.
Okay. Anyone else like to be on the Technology Committee? There's another new one. Wellness Committee to promote the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of our students, staff, and community member with community members with stakeholder input. This is 4 to 5 p.m., second Tuesday of each month, maybe virtual. It's not required. Can somebody, since this is a new one, does anyone have any?
I have some information to share. So part of this is, this actually came with regards to ensuring that our students are receiving healthy meals. That's how it originated. And then we explored, well, while we're on this topic, let's ensure that all of our students and staff, we consider how we're being intentional about addressing wellness as a whole. And so we have several key administrators that are supporting each other. So we have our our food service director, our athletic director, as well as our HR director, who are working together to address the different stakeholder groups to meet their wellness needs. So part of that is how do we promote physical, mental, and emotional well-being across the district.
Are the psychologists and social workers included in this?
They were all invited. So anyone who, these are voluntary. So we aim to invite nurses, school psychologists, social workers. They all have the ability to participate.
Anyone want to be on the wellness committee?
I have a question. So I see the importance of this, but I had wanted to ask Dr. Roman if this has any overlap with community schools, because we don't have a community schools Board of Ed position, but I was interested in joining that, but I wanted to see how tonight the reorg worked out and if there was time in my schedule to do community schools, because that's something I think is really important, one of our new initiatives. So do you see a connection between those two? Do we need somebody on both of those? Which one do you think would be a priority?
So there is overlap because we're addressing some of this, but the community school strategy is more comprehensive because we're looking also at the educational component, the expanded learning opportunities. So it's more expansive than just this wellness committee. With the community schools model, we have the community schools steering committee, who is going to be helping to drive that. So if you're looking to have more of an impact on and more voice and engagement, I would say the community schools steering committee would be the way to go.
Okay, I would like to do that if that's all right with the board.
Do what, the wellness committee?
No, I don't want to do, because I'd rather do community school steering committee is something that Dr. Roman has talked about, but I didn't sign on because I wanted to see how many committees needed our help at this meeting. So I would like to not do wellness because I'd like to do community school steering committee, which
Okay,
is not on the list. Sorry, but I'm adding one.
okay. I'll do well. I want to see what this is about, so okay. I'll do wellness. And then anyone else on wellness? All right, lastly, we have our zero emission vehicle committee to research and guide the district through the state mandated transition to zero emission buses and vehicle purchases by 2037 as required by New York state law. The committee includes community members and administrators from the transportation and finance areas, one time per quarter or as needed. Last year, Mike was the board member and Carl served as a committee on this committee as community member. So would anyone like to be on the zero emissions bus vehicle committee?
I'd like to stay on it.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Mike and Carl. So this is another one that would appreciate community participation. If anybody is interested out there, let us know. Did you have was there something from you, Margaret? I heard a ding. Was it?
No, I got booted off, so I had to come back on.
Oh, I was gonna say, nobody should be joining.
It's like, we're guarding it, don't worry.
Moving on to the regular Board of Meeting agenda. So give me a minute to switch over. So this is part 2. This is our regular meeting. So this is the regular business portion of the July. Oh, wait, that's not it. The July 6th.
Yeah, that's part 2.
Is your stage of
That's two. Shoot.
Okay. So this is the regular business portion of the July 2nd Board of Education meeting. So the agenda says July 6th, but that's a typo. What is, do we do anything here? There's a presentation.
We have to adopt the agenda.
No, but part of 1.01, do we have to do anything?
No, it's just
Okay.
information.
Okay, any amendments to tonight's agenda? No changes. So. Okay, 2.03, can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda for part 2 of the meeting?
So moved it.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to 3.01, Pride.
So good evening, everyone. I would like to first start off by congratulating all of our students who moved up over the past week or two, and to our FDR graduates. It was a great ceremony. All the individuals that put that event together, I want to just send kudos and a deep appreciation, because there's many hands that are involved in making such a ceremony happen. And it was great to see all of our students in a single color cap and gown. I think that was an amazing change, and I just want to thank the high school, all the faculty, staff, support staff that were involved with that, and once again, congratulations to our graduates. Next, with regards to congratulating our students, Haviland had a great ceremony as well. We got a little wet out there. But the evening cleared up, and so we got a chance to celebrate and honor our middle schoolers who are moving up to FDR. And the same holds true with our elementary schools. Just want to thank all the principals. I didn't get a chance to go to each of the ceremonies, but our team split up because some of them were occurring concurrently. And just want to thank our principals for putting a moving up ceremony that really highlighted the talent and the efforts. I want to emphasize efforts on all of our students' parts, and just appreciate all of our families and support staff for assisting our students as they grow and transition to the middle school. We also had the camp convention start yesterday. And so what you see here is students working on light boxes, where they were learning about how to wire various circuit boards. And so they were exploring white light as well as UV light. And it was just amazing to see how engaged they were. They were supporting each other, assisting each other. And it was just great to see them so engaged and hands-on learning. This is exactly what we espouse when we talk about the portrait of a learner, being innovative learners, being confident, being responsible, being critical thinkers. This is exactly what it is when you think about it. And so just want to give kudos to Jen and Kim Neisel, as well as Dr. Brown, who assisted with coordinating this, as well as all the teachers and support staff. The kids are happy. We've had the highest attendance rate in this program to date. We had close to 200 students enrolled in the program. Both weeks are at full capacity. So just want to send tremendous kudos to everyone who made that happen.
Course students selected for that.
So they just apply for the position for the camp, and it's amazing. If any board members want an opportunity to see hands-on learning, it's taking place the next 2 weeks. So please let me know. And no,
The next session is on upcoming events.
okay.
It's later in the month.
Okay, so I apologize. July 29th through August 2nd is the second session. So if any board members are interested, please let me know and I'll work to coordinate that visit. I think you would be pleasantly surprised of how our students are engaged and learning and having fun at the same time. See, before we go to the next one, I do want to highlight our administrators took part in a 2-day leadership professional development. We focused on developing our team, continuing to foster that collegiality and working as a team. We also were able to address some of the self-care research that's coming out in terms of being intentional about how we care for ourselves. And then lastly, we spent a great deal of time on transformational leadership with respect to the 4 disciplines of execution, which are basically principles to ensure that we're implementing any changes with fidelity and monitoring those initiatives to ensure that we're making the necessary progress. So that's going to be really critical as we enter into the new school year, because many of our buildings are going to be developing specific measurable goals for their schools. And we want to make sure that they are implementing these particular principles and strategies to make sure that we're seeing the return that we hope to see. And if not, then let's make the necessary corrective steps to make sure that we're not waiting to the end of the year to do a course correction. So we spent a lot of time there, and just want to thank everyone who helped to coordinate that, as well as the cabinet, who was instrumental in helping me make that happen. And at this time, I'll pass it back over.
All right. Any other pride from anyone? All right. Moving on to 4.01, upcoming meetings and events. On July 29th through August 2nd. It's, I assume, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Camp Invention Session 2, and that's at North Park Elementary. July 29th through August 2nd. 9 a.m. to 10:30, grades 5 through 6, and 12 to 1:30, grades 7 through 9. And that'll be the summer music experience at FDR. Thursday, August 8th at 7 p.m. The next Board of Education meeting will be held here at District Office. Any other meetings or events? Okay, moving on to 5.01, enrollment study from Linda Steinberg.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I actually have a document to go along with the presentation. So actually the presentation tonight is actually really short. It's basically a summary of the enrollment study and projection that we received from Western Suffolk BOCES earlier this year. They issued a document for us that was provided to the board over the winter. It was almost 60 pages, I believe. And I went through it and just picked out some of the information that I thought was most important, because there is a board discussion that I would like to ask the board for some direction on next steps regarding the information that we received. So Everything that's in this presentation is actually directly taken from that from the report from Western Suffolk BOCES. The report is also attached in board docs. So Western Suffolk BOCES was in our school district last year. They started the work over the summer to update the enrollment study. They had also provided us an enrollment study in 2018. So they really just took the information that they had, updated it. They did talk to the towns in our school district and reached out to some of the potential developers of real property to determine where they were in the process. They looked at some live birth data and also just trends in Dutchess County and New York State for housing and for how people are moving around. So this first chart is at the very beginning of their report. It actually shows a summary of the last 10 years and then projected out to the next 10 years. So because they started their study in the summer of 2023, they actually used the data from that was reported to BEDS in the fall of 2023. So anything you see in this report that references 2023 is actually the most current data that we have. So based on the information here, they were pointing out that since 2013, the school district has lost enrollment of 353 students, or 9.6%. So that was between 2013 and 2023. And then projected out, they're expecting for the first half of the projection period, so it's over the next 5 years, they're projecting small losses at the elementary and the high school level, where they're showing some gains at the middle school. And then for the latter half, so the last 5 years of their projection, they're showing still losses at elementary and high school and a gain at the middle school. So overall, their projection for 2033 is 3,225 students, which would represent a loss of 99 students from 2023, or 3%.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're losing elementary school kids, but gaining middle school kids. Where are those middle school kids coming from?
So they're showing that based on our current enrollment, that we are expected. They don't just look at the students that are here now and project them throughout. Yeah, they also get data from the county and from the state. So they did mention that the changes it's at the bottom of this page, and I realize it's hard to see when it's up on the screen, but they pointed out that changes in the enrollment occurred not just due to fluctuations in the number of children being born, but also the number of families moving into a community, or the number of children that are either entering or leaving non-public schools. There were two major projects in our district that really are not considered in their enrollment projection. So they did recommend that we keep an eye on this and either update our projection sooner than we normally would. I believe our board policy states that the projection should be updated every 5 years, but because of Bellafield and also the Hudson Heritage Project, which are potentially very large projects that could impact our enrollment greatly, they are suggesting that we keep an eye on that and consider having an enrollment study again before the 5-year period is over. So as we had discussed before, the Bellafield project, which is in the Ralph R. Smith attendance zone, by the way, is potentially going to have 800 residential units, and they already have site plan review underway for 12 townhomes. And Hudson Heritage is a little bit further behind. It's not determined yet if they actually will move forward with the residential units, but it's not taken off the table either. And their plans are to move forward at some point with 750 residential units. That's the area that's at the new ShopRite Plaza. That project is within the Violet Ave Elementary School zone. There are several pages where I show the table that they have in their report of the coming projects, housing projects in our school district. They do list it by town. So the first town is the town of Clinton. There's some properties here that they list, just things that should be considered. What they're showing for the number of units is what they actually have, but the status is where they are so far in their project. So like for the first one, there's 2 lots and it's already been approved, but there's been no housing proposed yet. So it's been over 5 years since that was approved. It's not something that has that much of a significant impact on our enrollment study. So this page shows some of the projects in Hyde Park, in the town of Hyde Park. Some of the significant ones are the very first one, Bellafield, as I mentioned earlier, is within the Ralph R. Smith attendance zone. There's also Jeffrey Grove Estates. That's that project that's on North Cross Road. I know that there are some of those townhomes that are already occupied. They are nearing completion of the total project. That's in North Park Elementary attendance zone. Also in the North Park attendance zone is River Ridge. Those are condos that are off Route 9. And they do have new condos that are going in there. There isn't currently any planned activity in the town of Pleasant Valley, but in the town of Poughkeepsie, there's the Hudson Heritage Project, which has 750 units potentially. And like I said earlier, that's within the Violet Ave attendance, so it's in the town of Poughkeepsie. So those are all projects that we really need to keep an eye on, and we should consider having an enrollment update sooner than the 5 years because of that. Oh, sorry, here's some more for the town of Poughkeepsie. And that first one is significant too, 250 affordable rental units of Fairview Avenue. Now the report also provided like some tables showing the current enrollment and then projected enrollment through 2033. So these tables don't show the history, but first they show the overall enrollment for Hyde Park with the projections. So for K-12, they are showing that there would be expected increases at the middle school, as we mentioned already, and that the peak enrollment for the district would be in 2024 and 2026. And at the high school, it would be for grades 9 through 12. They're expected to have their greatest number of students in 2030. However, by 2033, based on the current projections, we can expect to see losses in enrollment of 99 students, which is nearly 3%. They also broke down their projected enrollments by type. So they have the elementary schools listed here. So these are grades K through 5. Each school is listed separately. As you can see, and I'm sure anyone that knows Hyde Park is well aware of this, most of our elementary students, or North Park has the largest enrollment. Netherwood has the lowest, and Ralph R. Smith and Violet Ave are right about even overall. So right now in 2023-24, we had 1,429 students in grades K-5. The projection for 2033 is 1,337 students at these grade levels. So overall, that would be a 6.4% decrease. And again, none of this takes into account those big projects that may be. And finally, there's also the secondary school enrollment projection. So this is the middle school and the high school. Between 2023 and 2033, we're expected to lose about 7 students at the secondary level, or which is less than 0.5% change. So basically, the report from Western Suffolk BOCES said that the changes that we are projected to experience are not significant at all. Overall, they basically state that enrollment will be steady. We did see that at the state level too. That's one of the reasons why Hyde Park did not receive the same cuts in state aid that other school districts were at first experiencing or thought they would experience. We were told by the state too that because our enrollment has not been decreasing at the same rate as other districts, that we weren't penalized for that. However, there are some disparities in enrollment at the elementary school level. We have right now about 33% of our elementary students are at North Park. In the 2033 projection, that's 34%. Both Ralph R. Smith and Violet Ave are around 23 to 25% if you consider this year too. And then Netherwood is less than 20% of the total elementary enrollment. So for that reason, and also because of the projects that aren't completed yet, I think it would be a really good idea for the district to consider an attendance boundary zone study that's different than the enrollment study. That would involve having a firm come into our district and evaluating where the people actually live, where the students live, looking at our attendance zones, which that's what you see on this colorful piece of paper. You can see that the lines are not very straight. I'm assuming that's how it was redrawn when we closed Hyde Park Elementary School in 2011-12. The firm, if we were to hire them, could do the work in any way that we requested that they do it. They could make recommendations directly to the board at the end. They could work with committees, which is hopefully what we would have them do to bring some different options, and the board would then be able to consider, make a decision if we want to change our attendance zones or leave them as they are. And at that time too, there would be more information from the other projects, so we could at the same time have our enrollment study updated. So I've talked to a few different firms that do this work. Every firm I've talked to said the project would take at a minimum 2 years. They would expect to gather data and do their review over the one school year. And then in the second school year, they would engage the community, staff members, and anyone else at the district that's interested in meeting with them to formulate a plan to present to the board at the end of that second year. And I'll say it's quite a big undertaking. Yes.
Are the capacities relative to enrollment similar across these four? Because that's the question that I would be interested in. How close are they to capacity, right?
So a lot of our buildings, when you look at the capacity, because the capacity just considers like the number of students in a building. So it might look like we're under capacity in all of our schools actually, but that's considering the fact that we're using some spaces for offices, other spaces maybe for other programs. Like at all the schools now, we have the Bright program, so that takes up space. But when the enrollment studies are done, they look at that as potential classroom space. So that those reports will not show that we're under capacity at any of our schools.
So just sort of from just thinking about the size of the schools, all four of these are relatively the same size? Or so yeah, so that's the question I'm getting at, right? So we say 34% are at North Park. Is North Park the biggest footprint, for example?
That's hard for me to answer because of how they use this space. I do know that I don't believe we currently have any space to really add classrooms if we needed.
Each school must have a student capacity assigned to it, right? That it can handle 10 kids or 12 kids, or I mean, I'm sure we have that data.
I mean, that would come out in attendance zone boundary stuff.
Yep.
And I think we have to also factor in class sizes, because we know that the class sizes at North Park are larger just by the data that you included in the report. North Park is at over, I love 25.1 students. How do you have a 0.1 student? But they're 25 or more, and then you have Netherwood at like under 20. So while I understand capacity, we also have to look at class sizes.
Yep. So are you asking us for?
Yes, for permission to move forward with an RFP, which is a request for proposals for a firm that would conduct an attendance boundary zone study.
And that's not a committal thing. We would
No.
review the RFP to see cost and everything.
We'd have a committee that interviews the respondents, and then we would have a recommendation to the board that the board could accept or not based on a number of factors, based on price, based on of what the firms are suggesting that they could do for us.
Vote on that or just say, what do people think?
I think it's a great idea. It's planning for the future. I mean, it's information. Why wouldn't we want to know?
Yeah,
I think it's worthwhile to get the RFP. Sorry, Margaret, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's hard to know who's talking. I think, from my perspective, I think we have to do it. You know, with these new developments coming in, our class sizes in some buildings are pretty large. I think it's a really good idea, and I appreciate the thorough report giving us the data to go off of. So thank you, Linda.
So thank you. So in the RFP, we can request that they look at capacity, but also class size.
Yeah.
Like the RFP will be tailored to what we're looking for them to do.
Seems to me those are two sides of the same coin. Right? Capacity is a function of what you define as class size, yeah?
Well, we may have a class size of 20 at one school and we could potentially fit 10 more students in that class, but.
But we define class size and then that defines capacity based on number of classrooms. That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do this, but I think the RFP, we got to see the cost of it, right?
Right.
I mean, if it's going to be some obnoxious number, then we'd have to rethink of,
Right.
You know, how to get it done.
Yeah, we do have to realize too, if we move forward, I think it would be a very sensitive subject for the community. If we start talking about potentially redistricting our elementary schools. So anything that if we do move forward with a study, we would need to find a firm that could commit a lot of time to meet with the various groups as well.
And that would be in year 2, right?
I talked to 2 different firms and that was basically the basic plan that they gave to me. But really, if we hire a firm, they would be working for the school district and would be working the way that we ask them to work.
Okay.
You know, meaning if we want to get the community involved sooner, we could let them know that they have to start meeting with the different groups earlier than the second year.
You guys good with the RFP over there? Okay, so I think we're good with the RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Moving on to 5.0, you done?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were still clicking. Moving on to 5.02, registration update from Melissa Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. So, summer is a good time to review where we're at with our registration process and our current numbers. So I just wanted to start off with our year in the registration department. So currently we have 2 records assistants. Well, actually we're down to 1 because one moved to Dr. Roman's office. So we're actively seeking a replacement. And we have 1 administrative secretary. This year, we had 629 students registered throughout the school year. That includes kindergarten, CPSE, out of district, private schools. So not all the students who registered are currently attending our buildings. We had 151 changes of addresses processed in our office. We had 147 applications for UPK. And currently we have 78 students considered homeless. We have 7 students who are unaccompanied youth. We have 53 students in foster care. And our total enrollment as of June 26, and you'll notice a slight change from Linda's presentation because Linda's was based on Beds Day in October. We currently have 3,303 students enrolled. So, registration is based on regulation from New York State, and we are required to register any student over the age of 5 or under the age of 21 who has not received a high school diploma. And they must attend within our district boundaries. They must reside within our district boundaries. School districts are not obligated to provide an education to non-residents. There are exceptions under the McKinney-Vento Act for students experiencing homelessness or temporary housing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the Board of Education sets policy regarding acceptance of non-residents. So currently, we only accept non-residents on a tuition basis, and that is per the approval of the superintendent. And school districts have the right to question residency to determine their obligation to provide educational services. So the registration office is notified often if a school gets a returned envelope and it says from the post office, this person no longer resides there, their address is changed. Sometimes we get phone calls that a student has moved and a parent is dropping a student off at a bus stop and they no longer live there. So we're required to investigate that. And the first step is to reach out to families and say, we believe you've moved. Can you provide us with additional information and update your information as far as change of address goes? So timelines for registration, we are required to move quickly when we have a new family register. Every student is entitled to a free public education, regardless of nationality or immigration status. Our district must allow students to begin attending school as soon as possible, and the state says ideally the following day. We try the best we can to get students in as soon as possible, and we work with the families to get their schedules and their transcripts all set up so they can start as soon as possible. If the student has started and they have not provided proof of residency after 3 business days, then we have to review all the information and issue a determination about residency and provide information regarding the appeal process if the family disagrees. And what do we look for when families come in and they have to prove that they are a resident? Number one, we have to see a birth certificate or a proof of age. That could be through an ID or a passport. We have to have proof of immunization. There are no exceptions to that unless a student is homeless or unaccompanied. Then we work with the student to gather that information for them. Proof of residency comes down to a few key factors. If they're a homeowner, then we must see the school or property tax bill and a current recurring bill with the name and address for the services received at that address. If someone is a renter in an apartment complex, we must see a signed lease along with those recurring bills. If a renter is renting from a private owner, again, we must see a lease. And if there is no formal lease, we have a residency affidavit that has to be filled out and notarized. McKinney-Vento Act is regulation around students who are experiencing homelessness and or in temporary housing. And they are entitled to enroll without all of the documentation. And our office supports the families in gathering that documentation over time. It's really important to understand the definition of a student experiencing homelessness. And the definition is individuals who lack fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime housing. So if a family is doubled up, and they're not renting, but they're staying temporarily with a friend or a relative, that is considered homeless because it's temporary, it's not fixed, and it's not regular. They could have to leave at any point in time. So that's important to note. If a family is considered homeless, they have some options. They can attend the school of origin where they came from, or they can attend the school of location where they're currently placed. And we are required to provide transportation as long as it's within 50 miles. So we have bus students to Catskill, to across the river, several locations there. And it's a coordination effort between registration and transportation to make that happen. We must provide access to education services, including preschool. And the McKinney-Vento Act really makes sure that barriers are removed for students experiencing homelessness and that they have the same opportunities as their peers. I work very closely on this with families, and I make determinations on a regular basis regarding homeless status. And we follow up with families throughout the school year, along with our social workers, and make sure that they have all of the necessary things that they need to attend school. That includes school supplies, make sure that they can attend sporting events or anything else that they need in school to help them have a good experience. So when we get information that a family has moved, or we believe they're no longer residing where they registered, we reach out to families. We ask them to provide us with updated information. 9 out of 10 times, families provide us with that information and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot, and they come in and they bring their lease and their updated bills. However, there are times, usually about once a month, we have a family that we can't either get in contact with or they haven't provided us the requested materials. So then we schedule a residency hearing. And at that point in time, the family comes in and meets with me. They're required to bring evidence. And I have to consider all of that as evidence as the residency officer and make a determination. And the determinations vary. It could be that a family says, I've moved, I no longer live in the district. I'd like to ask for consideration to stay. I, as the residency officer, cannot approve that because our board policy states that they must be a resident of our district, and New York State law says that. So they can file an appeal with the Board of Education if that's the case, or they can register their child where they reside. And oftentimes the letters that I issue and determinations that I issue give them 30 days from the time of the hearing to register in the district where they reside. And last year we had about 10 residency hearings, and that's pretty average, about 1 a month. So, and like I said, most families, we work it out prior to it becoming a hearing. Any questions about the residency and registration process? Yes.
What kinds of things lead to a residency being called into question? I mean, that seems like 10 seems like a lot to me. What precipitates that?
So oftentimes we'll get mail returned, and it says that from the post office, there's that little yellow sticker that says this person has moved. And it will give a forwarding address sometimes. So that's really helpful because it gives us the information we need. Sometimes it doesn't give a forwarding address. Sometimes schools will notice that a a family is dropping off and picking up on a regular basis, and a student may disclose that they've moved and it's really far away. And then there are other times where our bus drivers might notice something as they're picking up and dropping off. So there are a lot of ways that we become aware. And the first step is for us to reach out and just inquire. And 9 out of 10 times, people are really honest about it. And then there are other times where we have to pursue something more formal. Any other questions?
So what I would say, this is extremely valuable now. Now is the time to talk about this during the summer, and it's also for our parents. Anybody who changes your phone number, your email address, now's the time to reach out to the registrar and tell them, so we're ready for September and we have your proper contact in the system. So thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.03, Human Resources Audits with Dr. Pedro Roman.
So good evening, everyone. This evening, I would like to walk you through the audit that we administered early on this school year. But I'd like to first start off by asking, in general, what is the role of human resources? So human resources is more than just processing individuals as they come into an organization. Human resources is more than just processing paperwork, making sure that we're in compliance with civil service and state ed law. So human resources is the face of an organization. Human resources is the heartbeat, the group that really helps to communicate the mission, vision, and core values of an organization. So human resources is more than just transactional work, which we consider compliance work. It really is transformational. And it really involves the recruitment, the hiring of talent, the growing of our talent within. It involves retention of highly qualified folks. So it's very comprehensive in terms of just bringing people in, processing them through paperwork and making sure their fingerprints are checked off. And so with that in mind, we launched this human resource audit. And it had a lot to do with my 100 days a year ago, which it's crazy to say. It's been 100 days, or excuse me, a full year. But in that first 100 days, my aim was to meet with at least 100 people. And within that visit with 100 people, I received a lot of feedback. And one of the trends that I communicated was the need to improve our service delivery of human resources. And that was pretty common in terms of the feedback that I was receiving from different stakeholder groups. And so that's what we set out to do. We wanted to improve our practices. We wanted to improve the delivery of services that we provide our staff, our students, and our community. And so I started off by saying that human resources helps to communicate what a district stands for. And so this is just highlighting that our new vision is about creating an innovative learning community for all. It's about our mission, empowering all learners to be successful members of a dynamic society. And lastly, it's our core values, HPCSD. And so those are things that have to be communicated, and it starts off from the time that we have individuals enter our system. So the point of contact is not when you hire someone. The point of contact starts off with the marketing tools that you use to advertise the district, to advertise vacancies. So you use those opportunities as touch points to make connections with individuals outside of an organization to help them understand what we stand for. And so it's really intentional work that we have to be in the forefront of and be mindful that every piece of communication is another way to bring people into the district. And so the audit really focused on helping us to grow as an organization, specifically in HR. And so we received input from the HR team and various stakeholders because it was really important that we have multiple voices. We didn't just want to hear from one particular stakeholder group. And so as a result, there was a survey that was administered that was shared out with the district. And so it really looked to identify what are the current responsibilities of our HR department. What are some of the pain points? What are the things that our staff are saying about the service delivery that's being currently provided? In terms of the skills that we need to continue to enhance our operations and some of the key initiatives to support our strategic goals, recruitment, retention, and talent development. It was also intended to ensure that we continue to strive for excellence, that we are able to obtain from this audit an action plan, a roadmap that helps us to identify which direction do we need to go in order to yield the highest rate of return or rate of return on some of the initiatives that are being recommended. And then lastly is, are the recommendations actionable? And so I apologize about the size of the font here, but in essence, after the surveys were administered, after they collected the anecdotal information, the qualitative information from the interviews, the group that helped us, Aritex, helped us to develop a roadmap. And the roadmap was a short-term, midterm, and a long-term process by which we can start to improve our HR delivery of service. And so the short term was a 0 to 12 months from the time we received the results to then a 2-year period, up to a 2-year period for the midterm, and two or more years as we looked at the green column. And so some of the recommendations were things such as develop a committee of administrators to help us identify ways that we can best support the hiring process. Because what we received was from the results that our administrators need more guidance in terms of that function. And that's a shared function in terms of how do we bring people on, how do we recruit, how do we market. And so they play a key role in that as well. But creating an advisory group to help us collaborate and continue the work moving forward. Talent development, what kinds of opportunities do we have to grow folks from within the organization and partner with colleges and universities and other businesses that we can really tap into to ensure that we have a robust bench when we need to call upon folks when there are opportunities in the district. So if we're growing our own, we're able to have somewhat of a control in terms of how are we developing folks, what kinds of trainings are they being provided, so that when that opportunity comes, we can call upon these individuals. And so those are some of the recommendations that are outlined in the document.
They have one in the middle column there. It says initiate employee mentor program. I mean, don't we already have that?
Yeah, so it may exist for certain bargaining units, but it may not exist for all the bargaining units. So for teachers, it's something that we do. For administrators, it's something that we do. However, if we think about how do we formalize a process for all of the other bargaining units, and also for some of the individuals that don't fall into one of those categories, that they have individual contracts. And so it's just a way to formalize that process so that we can ensure that individuals that come join us, that first year is usually a challenge. But how do we provide the necessary scaffold so that they have a successful first, second, third, and hopefully long-term tenure in the district? This next slide really just identifies from those three columns, what are some of the high costs, minimal impact, high costs, high impact versus low costs, low impact, and then low cost, high impact. So we really want to look at, right, like the quick wins. What are the things that we can actually do that may not cost us a lot of financial resources? And so we look at things like alignment of HR and educational goals, right? So ensuring that our priorities for the district are aligned with that of HR's strategic priorities. That doesn't cost us anything except for the time that's needed to invest in making sure there's alignment. Organizational structure enhancement. So how do we look at the current structure that we have and the people that we currently have? How can we organize them in a way to maximize the resources that are available so that we're delivering the best possible resources and services to our staff? So those are the things that are kind of organized here. Some of the things that may fall into a high cost, high impact could be comprehensive job analysis. So doing a study of compensation, doing a study of job analyses that may require us to do some further research, collaboration with other organizations within Dutchess County. Comprehensive surveys, so satisfaction surveys, they do take up a little time, but those are things that we can do to, again, gain input from our staff. Are we delivering what we need to make sure that they have a successful experience in Hyde Park? And the same thing goes with the midterm, same breakdown with the 4 quadrants, and then the long term. So what were some of the findings that came of the study? So again, the study really delved into the various facets of HR. So it really looked at strategic planning. It looked at environmental scanning and pinpoint external workforce trends. So what's currently the need in the teaching field? What's currently the need in transportation? What's currently the workforce need in various other departments? What are the performance metrics that we're looking at? Key performance indicators on whether or not we're making progress across the entire HR department. So how are we doing with diversity recruitment? How are we doing with ensuring that we are processing people in a timely manner where we're not losing folks because there's a low in time in terms of bringing them on? So those are all performance indicators that we have to keep track of to determine whether or not what we're doing is effective or not. And so those are all things that kind of fall under performance metrics. Continuous improvement, what are the areas that we continue to improve on? Overall HR service delivery. So these are all the areas that the assessment looked into. The efficacy of recruitment and onboarding, retention, and general satisfaction level of existing HR services. Are people, are they satisfied with what we're offering and providing? So I'm just going to highlight a couple of these. And again, I apologize about the small font. So there was a Likert scale with the survey that was provided. 1 being strongly disagreed and 5 being strongly agreed. There were a total of 160 participants in the survey. And so the mean score for various aspects fell between a 1 and a 3. Again, 1 being strongly disagree, 5 being strongly agree, on a scale of 1 to 5, indicating moderate levels of awareness, satisfaction, and feedback. So the highest average score that we received was the question that stated the likelihood to stay with Hyde Park. That question had an average of 4.29 out of 5. That means there's pride. There is something that is keeping people here within the organization. So that's a point to celebrate. This suggests a strong inclination among the respondents that they'll continue to work here. One of the lowest average scores, the question with the lowest average score was the performance awareness. So with the average of 1.61 out of 5, this indicated a lower level of awareness or satisfaction with performance-related aspects as it related to the delivery of services from our HR department. In terms of the dimensions that were higher, onboarding, development, and career planning was rated high on the overall dimension. Again, 1 to 3 was the range out of 1 to 5. So that was rated amongst the highest. In terms of average scores in other areas like strategic planning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the HR service model, which indicated a moderate level of awareness and satisfaction, these areas present areas for opportunity for growth. And so those are some things that came out of the assessment. So this is a visual of basically where all of the results kind of landed. So right in the middle is 0. And as you work your way out to the outer circle, that's a 5. Again, 5 being the highest, 1 being strongly disagreed. So as you can see, that there's various color lines, and that's for the different groups. So there was 1 for the overall, there was 1 for the administrative group, there was 1 for non-instructional, there was 1 for instructional staff. And so again, as I read those other key points with regards to the averages, these are where the respondents kind of landed. Again, we want to get, where do we want to be? We want to get to the 5, right? We want to get to the outside. The majority of the responses kind of fell in between that 1 and 3 range. So we want to work our way out to that outer circle. Some of the things that are around, again, I alluded to earlier, but environmental community scan, that really has a lot to do with making sure that we are aware of the compensation in the area, developing partnerships with different organizations such as colleges and universities, making sure those partnerships are strong. And so as you go around to the various domains, those are where essentially the questions kind of landed in one of those buckets. I want to pause there for any questions that anyone has.
We had 160 people take it. What percentage is that of the entire staff?
So in terms of the total number of staff, Linda, can you help me in terms of roughly? Because I think it's a pretty high percentage.
Well, we have about 750 full-time employees, so that would be
It's about maybe under,
percent.
maybe high 25, 25, 20%.
I mean, does that seem normal? Seems low, doesn't it?
So according to the individuals that did the assessment, they said that's pretty much what they typically get, give or take, 5-10%. But typically that's usually the amount that they do receive. Any other questions? Okay. So the current HR organizational structure is such that we have a director of HR and equity. We currently have a personnel associate who is, so both the director and the personnel, they have within their job spec a lot of responsibility as it relates to all aspects of HR. So you go from talent development to recruitment to retention, all the way to benefit administration and all the compliance work. So both these positions have a lot of that responsibility. The personnel assistants are somewhat limited in terms of some of those responsibilities that they alone cannot take on based on the job specs from civil service. So what I'm recommending to the board this evening is that we take a look at reorganizing it based on some of the findings that we have, and some of the recommendations that are being requested. Some of the recommendations that have been provided from the audit. And so the recommendation is to move forward with a different organizational structure. The organizational structure would start off with a chief of HR and professional development. So one of the reasons why we would go to this position would be, number one, it's a certificated position. So it involves someone who is knowledgeable in the area of education, which is really key when you're talking about recruitment, so that you can actually go out, interview people on the spot, do screenings, be able to assist principals with that process, and also be able to address some of the areas of the mentorship and developing our talent, because we would also implement professional development that really aligns with the needs of the workforce. We would then look at the second layer, which we currently have a personnel associate, and elevate one of those and create one of those personnel associate positions. So right now we only have one, but we have two personnel assistants. So what I'm recommending is that we eliminate one of the personnel assistants and create a personnel associate position. The reason for that is that the workload needs to be dispersed in a way where all the responsibility doesn't fall on just one person. We have to be able to divide the workload so that the chief of HR is able to focus on strategy, is able to focus on a lot of the higher level work that needs to happen to make sure that the alignment is there, and to make sure that we're driving these recommendations on their own, that they're able to take this roadmap, put it in place, and just move forward. The assistant would then be there as a support to the entire team. Again, this model would require a new vision of looking at the way HR functions. It has to be a more collaborative, team-focused approach to the work, because one person can't do that work. This would require us to abolish two positions and create two new positions. The two positions that would be abolished, number one, would be the director of equity and HR, and one personnel assistant. Then create the chief of HR and professional development, and create the position of a personnel associate. So I firmly believe that with this reorganization, we would be able to move forward with the recommendations that have been in place for several months now, to be able to advance this work and now catch up with some of the timeline that has already elapsed, so that we can then continue to progress and make sure that the HR department is really espousing the mission, the vision, and the core values, and be able to help us get to our ultimate destination, which is creating a blue ribbon district. And part of that is changing the climate and the culture, because the HR team really is the face of the organization to help us get to that point. So some of the responsibilities of the HR, and again, this the chief of HR and leadership development, or professional development, would be to, again, set strategic vision, set goals for the team, implement the recommendations, monitor the recommendations, oversee APPR, oversee Title IX compliance, which currently many of these responsibilities are falling in other departments. So this would help to streamline the function of the HR team, because some of these things have been dispersed to other teams because there really wasn't a dedicated HR division in past years. And unfortunately, those responsibilities were never shifted over to the HR team as it currently exists. But all of those functions should be either in collaboration with other teams, or they should be, the responsibility of the HR administrator. Automating, onboarding processes, making things more efficient, digitized, so that we're not losing people with the waiting period. We can quickly identify who's in the pipeline to get hired, how much time has elapsed, who submitted all their documents, and all of this could be done in an automatic way so that it's more efficient for the organization. This is really going to require us to think differently about HR, but that's an opportunity for us to be able to improve what we're currently doing. And then lastly, in terms of timeline, if this is something that the board does approve and support, this is my recommendation that we have to modify this timeline somewhat, but we would start off with the posting, active recruitment, making sure that we're not just posting it on OLAS, but we are reaching out to all of the human resource personnel organizations, that we're, reaching out to our Lower Hudson superintendent colleagues, Capital Region District, as well as here in this local area. Begin the interview process sometime in late June, early August, with a recommendation to the board sometime in the end of August, our second meeting there. So it's an aggressive timeline, but I'm optimistic that we will be able to attract folks with the title of a chief of HR, which is now becoming standard in terms of titles through a certificated approach. That will be very enticing to prospective candidates who may be looking at this time. So I'll pause there with any questions that you may have.
So on the timeline, right? So, you're presenting this tonight, and like, are we looking to vote on this tonight? The timeline starts tomorrow, right?
Yeah, so that's why I said we have to adjust that timeline.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, no, we would have to adjust the timeline. I'm giving just a general time frame
Okay,
for us to be able to move forward with a plan like that. Again, that's my recommendation to the board in terms of, how do we move forward.
okay. And so at the next board meeting, we'll see like more details on the plan as far as like costs, right? Because I'm
Yep.
sure there's going to be, we're moving people around or whatever,
Yep.
and there's going to be costs for different titles and what.
I can definitely chart that out for the board so that you see that.
Yeah, so I personally would like to see that before we make any decision on the plan going forward, right? To see the big picture, comprehensive picture. How about anybody else have any?
Where does the DEI work fall under this new organization?
Yeah, so it's really, we have to look at the entire system. So the DEI work really was something that was added to the Director of Guidance. It never really got a jump start in human resources. I'm not sure for what reason, but there was never a push for that work on the human resources. Although it was in the title, there was no plan to kind of roll that out. But in terms of how do we move forward from that, one of the things that we would do is to really be very clear with the expectations on the DEI work as it relates to the Director of Guidance. But the HR does also play, a role in the professional development aspect across the district. And one of the things our administrators have been bringing to the forefront is how do we take the New York State culturally relevant guide that New York State has kind of issued back in 2019 for us to be culturally responsive and culturally relevant. We have to do more work around that, of creating, welcoming, affirming environments for all. And so we do have a plan that we're going to be addressing this upcoming year around that.
Would we be able to see a list of a couple of years ago when we were changing some job descriptions? There were a side-by-side comparison of what each administrator was responsible for, and the concern here is that we had a director of HR and equity who the position wasn't covering the equity piece, and some of the job descriptions that you've listed kind of mirror the assistant superintendent for instruction, and as you said, the director of guidance. So if it's possible to just see laid out where the different job descriptions line up for those.
Margaret, that's one of the things that have been identified in the assessment and the audit. We lack a robust list of job descriptions for our positions. That has to be, as we move forward, it has to be codified. A lot of what you saw in the report really spoke to that. Standard operating procedures have to be codified, but what we could do is we can put something together for the board to look at the next meeting in terms of certain positions as it relates to this reorganization aligning with the deputy position and the director of guidance.
Thanks. And I do understand it's probably going to be changing as this is all worked through, but it would be good to see like a skeleton kind of list of responsibilities.
Absolutely, we could.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, we could definitely do that. Okay. Have my marching orders?
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Where are we? Moving on to 6.1. Can I get a motion to enter public participation?
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please note, as a general rule, public participation is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with the first public participation segment limited to 21 minutes. The segment of time may be modified by the board as deemed appropriate. The board requests that remarks be courteous and respectful of all. So would I like to address the board? I think either in person or I think we have the virtual option up, right?
There's a phone number on the screen.
Okay, so there's a phone number on the screen if anyone would like to call in and attend public participation virtually. And we have one in person.
All right, I have a lot of notes. So my name's Rabbit Peak, I live in Hyde Park. On the enrollment study on pages 22 to 24, each school was broken down and it was very confusing. They were, instead of comparing apples to apples, it was apples to oranges. For Violet Avenue, North Park, and Netherwood, it was 6 of the last 10 years. For Ralph R. Smith, it was 5 of the last 8 years. For HMS, it was 7 of the last 10. FDR was 7 of the last 8. It kind of makes it kind of skew the results. Like it doesn't skew, it just doesn't make sense to me. But that's just my little input on that. I also was trying to find on the website the free breakfast and lunch this year for the summer for the kids. I don't see it on the website. Maybe it's there. I don't know. Yeah, I just was looking for that. And then I also was at the awards night for FDR, and the scholarships from Bellafield that they said they were going to do. When does that start? Because they were not given out at awards night. It was $25,000 for 20 years, 5 at $5,000 each year, and they weren't given out. I don't know if they're in the process of getting those. And then you asked the questions about the equity and the budget for the price increase of the chief, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No one calling in? Okay. At this time, we will close public participation. So, all right, the enrollment study data, I guess I would have to go back and look to see. What's that?
Yeah, perhaps Robin could show me in the report after, and I can look into that.
Okay. And then the free breakfast for summer, is that for summer school?
So for summer school, students are receiving it, but I think you're talking about
Yeah.
like free within the
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something we'll take a look at. I'll make sure, Linda, we could take a look at that with Craig. Okay. And then,
The Bellafield scholarships?
yeah, so the Bellafield scholarship, that doesn't go into effect until they have a certificate of occupancy, which it does, once that's issued, then they can start to issue the scholarships. So it doesn't start until that happens.
Dr. Roman, that would be the same year one of the pilot would also be the year that the certificate of occupancy.
Right, and I remember that when we were talking with them about this, they had to start, their plan is to start the scholarships next June. So for next year's class, it was never planned for this year.
Okay. Moving on to 7.01, board discussion, including the consent agenda items. So the first thing is the option for filling the vacant board seat. Again, we have two options. We appoint someone whose term will end May 21st, 2025, the day after the next election. Or option two is a special election to fill a board vacancy, which has to happen within 90 days of the vacancy. Therefore, October, which is when we are planning or discussing the grant that we got, vote that has to go to the public, that would be too late, which means we would have to have a special election for the vacancy, and that election elected person would go through June 30th, 2026, which was the end of Jesselyn's term. So, anybody have thoughts on this before I share my thoughts on?
Is there a time frame requirement for an appointment?
No.
Because it was my impression that we don't have to appoint anybody.
Correct.
We can operate with an opening
Correct.
and appoint at such time. Okay.
Yes, that is a true statement. There's no timeline and there's no requirement that we actually fill the seat before the next election. So,
Like, if we had an election, would all of the typical regulations apply? They would still have to collect X number of names, and we had three openings and one person who actually went through that last time. So it could very well end up being just a write-in as well as that. Yeah.
right. And with I think the number that was quoted, I think an election cost around $30,000, right? So my view on it, that's too costly for something that we may not even get a candidate.
That's where I was going.
Interested.
That's very expensive.
Where you have to have the vote no matter what.
How difficult it was to get people to
Right.
run last time.
Right, I agree. The cost alone doesn't make sense to do it.
Right.
If we had a whole bunch of people who had run last time, it might be a different thing, but
Right. And just so everyone knows, the process would be if we have someone interested in being on the board, let me know, let Jay know, let any board member know. And we would then meet with the board collectively. And then we would make a decision whether or not we would appoint a particular person. Right? Everybody okay with option one, the appointment, or do we need a vote on that, or just a discussion? You okay with the appointment, appointment, appointment? Okay. The king of appointments.
That's right, I'm not available this year.
Me neither.
Okay, so again, if anybody's interested, out there, ask around all the board members, if you know someone that might be interested, have them contact us.
I'm just reading this policy just so you can.
Jay, could you just repeat what the qualifications are? So for people who are considering it,
I think it's just in district, you live in district and you're not an employee.
And you're 18.
And you're
You
18.
can read.
Yeah, read and speak English. It's basically, if you're a qualified voter in the district, all of those qualifications are part of board member qualifications.
right? And you can't have worked in the district for the last year.
You can't work with, that's true. And you can't live in the same household as another board member. There are a couple other specifics, but if anybody's interested, call me and I'll work through it with you. We'll make sure you could qualify.
So the policy that we have, it says the Board of Education has the power to fill any vacancy within 90 days after it occurs by a majority vote, which may occur on the board by reason of death, resignation, removal from office, or from the school district, or refusal to serve of any member or officer of the board. If that does not happen, the district superintendent may fill it by appointment in school districts under their jurisdiction. The person so appointed in the place of such member vacancy of the board will hold the office until the next annual election of board members. The remainder of the term for the vacated seat will be determined at the next annual election. Term cycles will be maintained. A person elected or appointed to fill a vacancy takes office immediately upon filing the oath of office. So it's not unlimited. We got 90 days.
That said it was the superintendent's appointment.
If we fail to do this,
After the 90 days.
they have the option, right? It's the option of filling it or not.
Is there a time limit, just out of curiosity, for the superintendent?
No, it doesn't say.
Okay.
What was Jesselyn's last name?
The last
board meeting.
board meeting was June 20th.
Okay.
June,
So end of September.
yeah, September 20th, roughly.
Okay.
Okay, board retreat topics. Last time we talked about, you're thinking about it. Anybody have any?
I'd like us to explore the International Baccalaureate, get information about it as a route to graduation, in addition to advanced placement. It's another kind of program.
Okay. Any other topics that people would want to hear about, talk about? Discuss?
I do want to just offer, there's a book called The Governance Core by Michael Fullen. It's a really good book. I was going to suggest to the board to consider it as a summer read for us, and jigsaw the book, so that we can each take a section and then kind of share out as part of a way for us to kind of continue to grow as a team.
Can you give us a sense of just broad strokes what the
So it really is about how do we become a strategic team to be able to achieve the goals that we set out to achieve as we work to build trust and continue to develop as a team. So it really kind of goes through all the different areas that we need to kind of continue to focus on so that we can develop, as a team between the superintendent and the board.
Would you email that title out?
Yeah, what I could do is if it's something of interest, we can order the book so that we can each have it well in advance of the board retreat.
Homework?
But one section.
Only 600 pages per section.
That's a quick read. It's a quick read.
So with your thing, I don't, is that really a board retreat, or can we just ask?
Do a workshop. If you want.
I just want, I would love the board to consider it. It's not free, right? So there's an expense associated with it. But I thought the board retreats are usually getting information. The board might want to know what the International Baccalaureate is to get a sense whether this is something we really want to move forward with, because it's, AP is individual courses. This is a curriculum with number of courses, a number of people teaching. So that's the only reason I suggested it as that.
Is there,
Workshop retreat,
is there a program expert somewhere at the state that would be able
I
to?
guarantee we can find someone someone within that program who would come in.
Okay, so it sounds like two good things, but I don't know if we want to have two for one retreat.
Yeah, and
That's
we
all.
could,
Do it now, we'll go out debate.
Well, they don't have to be back to that.
Right.
so, right. We could do a workshop. I was just gonna mention the goals, just kind of review the goals from this year. Kind of determine whether we met them or not, and then start setting the goals for the new year. That's something that we do have to spend some time as a collector.
That would be in a board discussion perhaps, as opposed to a retreat. Yeah?
We did it last year as part of the retreat.
Sure.
Okay, and I think there is a doodle poll out there for the two things, the tour of the schools. So normally every year we take a short tour to each of the schools. Last year, I just didn't work out with timing. This year, I think we're trying to get it done early fall. Is that when I don't remember.
Late summer.
Late summer, early fall. So, and then for the retreat. So do they both have access to the poll?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, everybody should have access to the doodle poll. So go out there and fill it in.
Are we thinking about the retreats for the summer, or are we thinking also some for, say, the winter? Because it don't have to be, if we're going to do a couple, we could do one in the summer, one in January or
Good
February.
point.
Yeah, I think, yeah, sure. But we'll schedule one and then,
Yeah, no, get it.
and then get the other
Rather
one.
than worrying about scheduling both as well.
And then lastly, any consent agenda discussion?
I have a couple. 8.24 is the mindfulness in schools contract. And I just had some questions on whether this is a typical contract. Some of the terms of it just were a little, I wasn't sure of. So it says that the contract determines that the mindfulness in schools project approves what teachers can participate in the training, and that any plans we have to research the effects of the training must be approved by mindfulness in schools, and that we have to send a minimum of 20 people for this training. And I didn't know if the cost, because it's $12,500 something. I didn't know if this was typical for a contract, because it just seems to give a lot of the control of the program over to an outside vendor, not to the school district.
So we'll have to circle back to that because Dr. Brown is not here this evening. And this would fall under curriculum and instruction. So what we'll do is we'll circle back on that.
Okay, so would we pull that out then? So we're not
can.
voting on that tonight?
We can.
Okay. And then the other one was very simply on the personnel, 8.29. We have 6 football coaches. That number seems high. I didn't realize we have a lot of coaches. Is the the number of athletes on the football team that big that it requires 6? I was just curious. It's not, not a deal breaker, but I'm curious about the number of coaches. That's a lot.
Well, I think it's 3 for varsity
Oh, yeah.
and 3 for JV.
Nope, it's 6 for varsity and 4 for JV.
Oh, there's 2 names. Oh, I didn't, yep,
Yeah.
2 names each.
So it's assistant coaches, there's a head coach and there's a bunch of assistants for varsity and for JV, but that's 10 football coaches. So that just seemed a lot. I didn't think we had that last year. So I was curious if there was an increase in enrollment, but that's a lot of stipends for football. So I just want to make sure that's accurate.
And do we normally have that many stipends for?
They're split stipends.
As there are 13 people listed under football. And that's the only boys sport, is that correct? And no women in the football program?
I think they could play.
They could?
Yeah.
Okay, there are girls, all right.
So this, just to clarify, those stipends are split between those 2 individuals.
Oh, okay.
So it's the one amount, but it's split between the 2. Margaret, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm trying to flip screens here. So the assistants are sharing a stipend?
Yes.
Okay, so if there's 6, then, okay. All right, I have to flip back to that.
So if there's 2, the amount is just divided by 2. The stipend, the total stipend is just divided by 2. And sometimes the reason for that is sometimes the commitment might be too overwhelming for one individual. That's sometimes the case so that they can share it. The other piece is it also serves as a way to kind of build new individuals up if they're sharing that position.
Okay. I just thought 10 just seemed like a lot. Thank you for explaining.
Yep.
Would you add more than one, or were you all done with the consent, Margaret?
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to take off the mindfulness in schools, so I'm good.
To amend.
Okay, let's finish the discussion and then we'll do that.
I just want to remind you before we go there. Okay.
Just to verify the 8.28 with the creation of the position, that's because we're adding that new
Correct.
12.11 or whatever that is.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And then, the 8.27 payroll correction, seems like every agenda now we have a payroll correction. So is this a happenstance, or is this always going to happen?
Well, not all payroll corrections are due to a clerical result. This is one in particular, the employee submitted 2 timesheets for the same work. So when we do notice payroll mistakes, we have to correct them, and every union requires an agreement with the board to adjust someone's pay.
Okay. Okay. Any other consent agenda? And just so you know, Christine, process-wise, when we get to the consent agenda, there's never a discussion on that. We always have the discussion during board discussion for consent agenda items. Any other consent agenda? If not, get a motion to amend the agenda, right? Okay, could I get a motion to amend tonight's agenda and remove 8.24?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved. Tibbetts.
Second, Margaret.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we're moving on to 8.01 to vote on the consent agenda minus the piece we just removed. So can I get a motion for tonight's consent agenda?
Oh, we just did that.
We just did that. I think.
No.
We voted on amending the agenda, then we voted on
Now a new agenda, no, we had voted
To create a new agenda,
approving the amended agenda.
right? And now we're approving.
It's a two-step process. You got to vote for the amendment and then a vote for the amended agenda.
Voted to remove, then we voted to new and new, and now we're putting on.
The whole agenda's changed.
I'm happy voting.
But now we're voting to approve the consent agenda.
Right.
I'll amend my vote.
So I need a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved, Tibbetts.
Second, Carl.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
We're done with that.
Moving on to,
But now we have to.
sorry, I saw a finger.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Moving on to 9.01, the superintendent's contract renewal. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of Hyde Park Central School District hereby approves the amendment to employment agreement between the district and Dr. Pedro Roman, Superintendent of Schools, based on information provided to the board and placed on file. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Tibbetts.
Second, Margaret.
Any discussion? All in favor? Those in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving on to 10.1, our second public participation. Could I get a motion to open it?
So move.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Please note, as a general rule, public participation will be limited to 3 minutes total per speaker. The second segment will be limited to 12 minutes. The segment of time may be modified by the board as deemed appropriate. The board requests that remarks be courteous and respectful of all. Would anyone like to address the board, either in the room or online? The number is posted out there.
On the screen right now.
I would read the number, but I don't know what it is.
845
845
698
698
1085.
1085. Give it a minute in case anybody just wants to call in now. Okay, with that, since nobody is calling or wants to participate in person, we will close public participation. 11.01, other matters deemed necessary by the board.
These chairs are really comfy. I don't know if that's a matter. I like the new chairs.
I like them too.
I like the color. All right, no need for a second executive session. So at 13.01, can I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
so moved.
Second, Tibbetts.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Tonight's meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.